Now, Nedbank is calling on organised labour, civil society and business to unite in condemning the violent protests across parts of the country. The group's chief executive, Mike Brown, is concerned that the riots come at a time when the country's economy can least afford it. He joins me now to talk more about this. Mike, many thanks for your time this evening. Now, I see you said today that Nedbank has not escaped the looting carnage. How bad was Nedbank hit?
Thanks. I hope you can hear and see me okay. So fortunately, the thing we've been most focused on is making sure that none of our staff have been injured, and we can report that none have. If we look at the damage to our physical infrastructure, right now we've got 51 branches that we know have been damaged. 30 would be what clients would know as Nedbank branches, and 21 Nedbank's inside Boxer stores. And we know we've had about 300 ATMs violated in some way, so they are alarming, but we are unable to assess the exact level of damage on all of those because we quite simply can't get to them.
Right. Now, given that other banks were also hit at both branches and ATMs, like you've just mentioned for Nedbank, does this mean that there's a cash shortage that is imminent in the country?
Well, so I certainly wouldn't say in the country, because clearly KZN right now, and we've heard earlier that remains an area of enormous concern and does need much more security than is currently available in that geography. So all cash in transit deliveries in KZN have been stopped. In Gauteng, cash in transit deliveries were also stopped, but there is an expectation that those are likely to be resumed in Gauteng tomorrow. The industry does meet through an industry body and continually assesses the level of violence and whether it is appropriate for cash in transit to be able to restock ATMs, etc. But I'm sure there absolutely will be some form of cash shortage in KZN. It's just not possible to have that level of devastation without it.
Right, Mike, before we get into issues of investment, what does this kind of carnage and what we're seeing happening in parts of the country mean for the GDP forecast? We were on a better footing to start off the year, and I'm sure we've probably taken a turn for the worse.
Yes, I think it's extremely difficult to estimate at this stage, in particular because although thankfully it looks like some of the violence is abating, one's not sure whether it may restart somewhere else. But, you know, if we look at Nedbank's views, I think at one stage we had GDP growth penciled in for this year at about 4.8, maybe 5%. Remember, that's a bounce off a very low base last year. The move to adjusted lockdown level 4 probably shaved 20 or 30 basis points off that to around about 4.6. And our latest estimates is we probably dropped down to about 4.3. But what is much more concerning to me than any short-term movements in GDP is that investment and growth over the longer term in any country has as a foundation the rule of law. And the devastation and violence and disregard for the rule of law is exceptionally damaging for the long-term growth of the country.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up investments because you've been part of envoys in the past trying to sell the South African case to foreign and local investors. But what is it that we can say now, given what people are watching take place in the country? How do you sell South Africa as an investment case?
Well, I think in the short term, it's extremely difficult. I think what is absolutely vital is decisive action by government to resolve this situation. This is primarily a situation of law and order. And however you look at it, law and order is primarily a government responsibility. So, you know, we need to solve this before we try and generate any investment for our country, and solve it in a way that people don't believe it's going to reoccur. And that's not going to be easy. There's no doubt about it.